And a while back, the pastor asked me to come and preach for him on Sunday, so I went. My wife, sat on the front row, cheered me on. Got done, and she just kept looking at me. I said, "Was it a good job or what?" She said, "No, not really." I said, "Well, what's wrong?" She said, "I don't know how you got from Genesis to Revelations in 35 minutes, but you did." She said, "You need better notes whenever you're talking to people." I said, "Okay, I got it." So, even tonight when I was thinking about what to say, she said, "You better put something on your notes. Otherwise, you'll start down a rabbit trail, and before you know it, everyone will be getting up and leaving, and you won't even be done yet." So, I've got a few notes with me tonight. I've got a friend that... he's always asking me questions about politics, send me political stuff all the time. Send me political jokes and all these other things. We've all got one of those, right? Your friend that sends you that stuff all the time. Well, most recently, he sent me a joke about politicians. And it said, if con is the opposite of pro, then isn't Congress the opposite of progress? Yeah, that's pretty funny. And of course, he called me 2 minutes later to make sure I got it and wanted to know what I thought about it. He also sent me one the other day. He says, "Never trust a man when he's in love, drunk, or running for office." I said, yeah, that one was almost as good as the first one. He also sent me a quote by Will Rogers a while back, and I actually used it in a debate on the House floor. And he was watching online, and he called me immediately, and he said, I saw you use my quote I sent you. I said, yeah. I said, am I going to need to get a restraining order against you? And he says, no. He goes, but I'm super excited. So now his claim to fame is he sent me a quote that I used in debate on the House floor. So he's super excited about that. And I'm surprised he's not here tonight, because he's normally following around somewhere. But he's a super good guy. But the quote was this. The difference between death and taxes is death doesn't get worse every time Congress meets. And as funny as that was, it's a very valid point. So tonight, I want to talk to you about some of this. And I only think it's fair, before I start talking to you about everything that's going on, I think it's only fair that you know a brief background on me, so you understand where I'm coming from and the experiences that I've had that has a direct effect on how I think and how I legislate and do the things that I do. When I went through seminary, I had an elder pastor. He told me, he said, "Let me tell you something, son." He said, "Churches aren't waiting in line because there's a shortage of long-winded pastors, so keep it short." So I'm going to give you a short bio, very briefly here, and then go into what I really want to talk to you about tonight. And what I'd really like to do after that, is, if I have time, is answer some questions, and the harder the questions, the better. That's you, Randy. I was born and raised in Bennett, Oklahoma. It's a little bitty small town, almost in Arkansas. I don't know. It doesn't even have a stoplight. It's a four-way stop sign, and that's the biggest thing in town. That, the bank, and the grocery store. I grew up south of town in an old dirt farm. We were poor growing up. My father died when I was 10 years old, and my grandparents pretty much took over raising me. They lived off of about $480 to $500 a month just in Social Security and whatever we made on that farm. And I thought growing up, man, I felt sorry for myself because I'm out here working in the dirt when all my friends are at the lake. But I just couldn't afford to go, and they needed help there. And even though I thought I was miserable then, I look back on that now and think, what quality of work ethic and the things that they instilled to me, knowing it or not knowing it, when they made me stay there and work on that dirt farm. Well, I joined the Marines right out of high school. I spent 21 years in the Marines. I served in 2 foreign wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. Traveled all over the world. And I couldn't wait to get out of there when I graduated high school to join the Marines, to get out of that place. But after I was gone for a while and experienced some really neat things, I couldn't wait. I got married, couldn't wait to get home and raise my kids in a small town environment that I knew and learned to love as I got older, because I understood it better. When I got back off of active duty, I just felt a killing in my heart. The Holy Spirit was just moving me to run for office. And I'll be completely honest with you, I didn't stand politicians. Didn't like them. I blamed them for us not having the gear that we needed when we were fighting a war. And they expected us to still do our job, but didn't send us what we needed. I didn't like them for all these other reasons. I'm sure you all can echo some of those right now. But I think God's got a sense of humor. Because when I got back, I felt He really put on my heart to do that. So I did. And when I first filed as a Democrat because I was a registered Democrat. Because when we were in school and registered to vote, the teachers told us, you're a Democrat. Everyone here's a Democrat. Just mark that. I'm like, okay. And I went through my entire Marine Corps career not even knowing what the Democrat platform said. So I get back and I'm going to run for office, and I announce in the paper, I'm running for office, here's my platform, I'm running as a Democrat. Well, the local Republicans got a hold of that and says, hey, why don't you come and talk to us? I'm like, okay. So I went and talked to them, and they were very cordial and nice folks. Didn't donate to my campaign at that time, but they were very nice and cordial, and they said, well, what's your platform? So I give them my platform. And old Joe Peters was sitting on the front row, very close to me, and he's a retired Air Force pilot, runs his own business, and he's kind of rough around the edges, but he's just a super great guy. And he's looking at me the whole time with his two fingers on his face with this serious look. And I'm thinking the whole time I'm giving my platform, wow, this guy really hates me. Once I got done, I said, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And everyone is tuned in on Joe, looking at him like he's the Messiah or something. So I was tuned in to Joe too. And Joe sits there for a second, he goes, you're not a Democrat. You just spouted off the entire Republican platform.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, I don't know. I said, if I ran as a Republican, I don't think I could win for one. And two, I said, my grandfather would turn over in his grave if he knew I was a registered Republican. And he looks me right in the eyes and says, he goes, how long has he been dead? I said, I don't know, 10 years or so. He says, don't you think it's about time he turned over anyway? So I was a little taken back by it, but I thought, no, I'm not going to say nothing. So I went home that night and I Googled the Democrat and Republican Party platforms. And I read them. And when I read the Democrat platform, I said, no, I don't believe in that. That's not me, not me, not me, not me, not me. Got a Republican? I said, yeah, I believe in that. I believe in that. Joe was right. So I went and changed my registration to Republican. Then I went right down to the Democrat-owned paper. I said, Mr. Mayo, I'd like to rerun my announcement for running for office. And he's like, oh, you can't do that. He said, first one's free, you got to pay for the next one. He said, why are you changing your announcement? I said, well, I'm a registered Republican now. And he about fell out of his chair, he laughed so hard. He said, you'll never win as a Republican in this county. What's wrong with you? He goes, let me do you a favor. Don't change, just run. I'm like, no, sir, I've got to. I said, I'm not running for the party. I'm running for my convictions. And when I read that party platform, that's what I believed in. It just happened to match my convictions. So I'm changing my party. And he said, all right, I'll run it. He said, people will buy it just to read it because it's funny. I said, okay. And he said, you'll never win. And so did everybody else. My whole family. You never win. It's a Democrat county. I said, okay. So I went out and I campaigned on my platform. People asked, why on earth are you running for office? And I told them. I said, I just feel like God has moved me to do this. This is my season in my life because that's His will. I said, if it's His will, I'm going to win. And guess what? I beat an 8-year incumbent that was a good old boy that had 10 times the money I had. And they've run somebody against me every single time, and every one of them have been millionaires, and not one has beat me yet. And they say, why? And I told them, because I'm in the season God put me in today. And I've stayed true to my principles and the platform and what I was supposed to do and told the voters I was going to do when I went up there.
Thank you.
And that,
Thank you.
and that is why I've been up there for 8 years now. Even though against all other odds, I should have been gone. You know, like I said, like most people, you campaign on a platform. Everyone's got one. But we've got a Republican Party platform. You know, that platform wasn't so much just a Republican platform or priorities I was telling you about. It was my personal priorities. And the Republican platform matched up to that. And my personal platform was God, family, and country. And that's been used so much, it kind of sounds cliche now. But I meant that. And I stuck to it. And I will always stick to that. And in essence, that's what the Republican Party platform is. Because when you read it, it spells out all three of those. You know, my friend Gary Richardson was telling me a while ago about a story about how God said he wouldn't vote for him because he said, praise God too much. Well, I'm not going to tell you what Gary said. I'll let him tell you. But, you know, I would feel encouraged to hear that come out of someone's mouth. Because really, our Constitution, this Constitution of the United States of America was built on biblical values. And it stood that strong all these years and never has wavered because it was built on the divine intervention of God. Whether you believe it or not, that's the simple fact.
That's right.
And if you stick to that, you cannot go wrong. So I think it's very obvious, I believe in Jesus Christ. I'm completely against abortion. I'm 100% believe that marriage is defined between one man and one woman. And I will not vote to raise taxes. And I'm socially and fiscally conservative. All of which, by the way, are in the Republican Party platform.
Yeah.
And if we, at this level, don't vet properly those that say they believe these things before they go, we fail. And that's why we had people surge into the Republican Party and making the bad votes and decisions they're making in our capital today. This is not a strike against you all. It's us too in my local party. We failed. We failed to do our job. And we've got to get better at it, and I believe that we will. So I've told numerous people and legislators and citizens alike, because I hear this all the time at the Capitol. Well, you got to compromise and you got to negotiate. I can negotiate anything, but I will not compromise my principles or my biblical values, ever. But you hear that a lot. Well, you got to do this, you got to do that. Sure, I can negotiate, but I won't compromise those principles. As a matter of fact, when I do anything, especially at the legislature, I've got a litmus test that I go by. First and foremost, is it biblical, or does it go against biblical values? Is it constitutional, or does it go against our constitutional values? How much does it cost? Do we really need it, and can we afford it? And 90% of the things that we vote on won't pass any of that stuff.
Amen.
But yet we have people that will vote for it. And mainly so because they're told to by leadership or somebody else because they didn't even bother to read the bill. I will tell you this, and I'm not saying it's because he's sitting here, but Scott McKeechin, he does a fine job for you all up there. Whoever, I guess this is your district, right? Is this your district?
A little farther south.
Well, I can't get you no votes here today, but I'll still brag on you. He's doing a fine job.
Yes.
You got an individual. You got an individual back here running for the United States Congress right now. I couldn't think of a better person to put in our United States congressional seat than that man right there.
Nathan Dahl.
If you could vote for him, my friend Gary Richardson is sitting over there. I've known him for years. He's never wavered. He doesn't say one thing and then change his mind later because he thinks it's something you want to hear. He's always the same steady hand. And those are the kind of people that you want to represent you. But I'll tell you, it comes at a cost. So by me standing on my principles, others who have campaigned on those same principles, by the way, that should be all Republicans, they feel convicted when they don't stand on those same principles, even though they said that they would. And they don't like me, or Scott McKeeson's, or the Nathan Dons, because we did. And I got to tell you, sometimes it gets lonely on that island, because that's what you get put on. So we need your support. Because up there in the Capitol, they all surround you and they say, well, no, the people want this. We've got all these surveys and all these things, all these numbers right here say they want you to raise your taxes. I said, really? Show me the numbers for Squee County. Oh, well, we didn't survey them. We just surveyed over here. They really get subjected to this kind of stuff. So by us doing what we're supposed to do, as we campaigned on and stand firm on, we provide a level of accountability and standards that most don't like. If you ask most people why they don't go to church, they'll never tell you the truth. Because they're held accountable. They feel convicted by the cross.
Amen.
No one likes to be held accountable, no matter what you believe. Whether it's secular or non-secular. If you're held accountable, nobody likes it. And when that happens, they feel held accountable, they take up a defensive posture immediately. Now you're the bad guy. Even though we got the First Amendment, everyone's entitled to their own beliefs and to say those things, right? Unless you're the one saying something they don't like. And that is what we're dealing with at the Capitol. Now, please understand that many will say that we will hold accountable those folks that go up to the platform, but when they get up there and they campaign and say, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, according to our platforms and our values and our beliefs, but when they get up there, they do something completely different. Why do you think that is?
Money.
All kinds of different reasons. You fill in the blank. But I guarantee you, when you call them on it, they'll give you an excuse. Oh, well, I was going to do that, but I had to do this. And you'll hear compromise a lot. Are you willing to send somebody back up that's compromised everything that you stand for or believe in for really a poor excuse? So many of them that are running under the Republican flag, they claim this all the time, to believe and will follow those principles, and because of this, we vote for them all. So it's partly our fault too. But to be fair to you and other voters, if they're new, and I'm not coming down on you all, if they're new and don't have a voting record, you tend to believe what they tell you. Oh, look at this card I got. I want to do these things because in our party platform, and I need you to believe in me. And some of them hold true to that, but some of them don't. But how do you hold them accountable? Or how do you know before they even get in office if they don't have a voting record if they're really going to do that? Now, just my suggestion to you. Ask them what their core beliefs or principles are. Now, I don't mean the canned answer you'll get from all politicians. Well, I believe pro-life, so I'm pro-life, pro-gun, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this and that. No, ask them what are your personal principles. What do you stand on, and how will you apply that to everything you vote on at the Capitol? And I guarantee you they're going to do one of two things. What comes out of their mouth next is going to be the truth, or they're going to stutter around and try to figure out what it is you want to hear. And if they stutter, I would encourage you to run away from them as soon as possible. Because they're lying to you. But ask them what those core principles are. You know, why is it so important to have a foundation of core principles? Because we must stand and fight. And we have to have a foundation to stand on and fight. And some of you are probably thinking, well, you pay $35,000 a year. What? They ain't worth going to fight for. Something's got to be worth fighting for. And if you don't have a foundation of principles to stand on and fight, you can't do it. You have to have it. Without core principles that you believe in or are willing to fight for in reality, you're not there for the right reasons. And if you don't have a foundation of principles, you will give up. And what you'll do is you will compromise the very people that you swore that you were going to go up there and fight for. Sounds like something out of a war movie, right? But it's the same thing. The only difference is we're not shooting at each other. Yet. Oh, by the way, we're not allowed to carry guns on the House floor now because the Democrats shot at another one years ago. Just in case you was wondering. So, if you can't tell, I'm extremely passionate about what I'm doing because I have an investment. My children, my wife, my family, and my neighbors. You know, I do have a neighbor that's hard to get along with, and sometimes I wonder why I fight so hard for him. But it's the right thing to do. And if you have principles, that is the kind of thing that you will do. You know, you got to think long term when you're thinking about putting somebody in office. What are they going to do for you, for your children, your children's children? What are they going to do to make Oklahoma better? And that doesn't constitute raising taxes, by the way. That is not what I'm saying. That's right. What are they going to do to make things better in Oklahoma for you, your children, your children's children, for all of us? Because that's what it's all about. It's not about a title. That title gets you nothing. Oh, I know out of respect, you respect the title. But that doesn't mean nothing to me. It shouldn't mean really that much to you either, outside of the respect that they're holding in office and representing you. They've got to be in there fighting for you. And if they're not willing to do that, don't vote for them or kick their sorry tail ends out.
Amen.
I learned a lot with my kids. I've got 6 kids. I've got them from 22 years old all the way down to 10 months old. I just got custody of a 10-month-old baby boy. And I learned a lot by talking to these kids, spending time with them as much as I can, doing things with them. I was watching a cartoon with my oldest boy, which is 12 now, and I don't even remember the name of the cartoon. But in the cartoon, there was a father bull talking to the son. And the father bull, he was there in the farmyard to protect all the other animals. And he was getting older, and he was grooming his son to do the same thing. And they were talking about this. His son had messed up and done some things that most teenage boys do that make no sense. And he said, son, a strong man will stand up for himself. A stronger man will stand up for others. And that is the kind of people that we need in office. Our founding fathers lived by these words, and when they sacrificed so much and formed this God-blessed nation, they did it out of selfless service and sacrifice that I really don't see, I'm just being blatantly honest with you, in our representatives today. A lot of it is for their own self. And it's not selfless. We have this great nation that we live in today, this God-blessed nation, one nation under God, so blessed because our founding fathers made so many sacrifices. It's our turn to sacrifice. And if you don't send the right person up there, we're just going to keep spinning our wheels. Just a quick side note. Does anyone have Sirius XM? Radio? I do because I drive all the time. And I normally only listen to 3 channels. K-Love, Focus on the Family, I think it's 131. K-Love 63, Focus on the Family is 131. Fox News is 114. And then today, I was so excited to find out, y'all know who Billy Graham is? Mm-hmm. He's got his own channel. It's 145. Right. And I'm listening to that. I'm listening to it all day long. I was up north of Westville today doing some stuff. I was driving home, driving all the way up here. Hour and a half of being able to listen to Billy Graham. And it's just some good stuff. But he was saying today on the way up here, he was saying, we take advantage of this God-blessed nation that we live in. Our dogs eat better than most people in third world countries. And today, our dogs eat better than most kids within the United States. And that's that way because we failed as a people. And I'm not convicted. I'm not trying to convict you here. I'm just as guilty, if not even more guilty than any of y'all in this room. But we failed to stand up. We failed to stand up and do what's right. And because of that, we have the outcomes that we have today in the United States of America. You know, we recited the pledge earlier. We all stood up, crossed our hearts, we looked at that American flag, and we said the pledge, didn't we? You know there's 31 words in the pledge? Some of y'all think Matthew is counting right now. There's 31 words. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 31 simple words. And that flag represents the service and the sacrifice that our men and women in uniform have made throughout the decades to make sure we lived in this God-blessed nation. I recited that pledge over and over in school, and kids still do it today. My kids do it every morning. And I never understood what it meant. What them simple 31 words meant. Until I joined the Marine Corps and served in Iraq and Afghanistan and saw the selfless service and sacrifice of men and women that blood sweated and cried on that battlefield in some foreign country to make sure we could stand here in this room and assemble and say that pledge. So I refuse, as one of 101, to let what goes on in that Capitol be detrimental to what our way of life here. And that detriment to us is those taxes they're raising. It's all this unconstitutional stuff they're passing and giving an excuse for it. And the just outright disgusting games that our bureaucracies and even our governor have played with our most elderly and most vulnerable in our state by sending them letters saying, we're going to cut your funding, when they knew it was a lie.
That's a shame.
All in an effort to get them to call us to say, vote for raising taxes. We've got to have this money. That's just the simple truth, folks. Because behind closed doors, there's some things going on that you would be disgusted about. But they used our own vulnerable in our society against us for their own agenda. And if you don't send the right people to the Capitol to fight for you, with principles as their foundation, this will be a runaway nation. And what I'm afraid what will happen is what Reagan said many years ago. If we don't stand and fight for our nation today and for what's right, one day our children's children will ask one of us, Grandpa, you were there. What was it like when men were actually free in the United States of America? That's on us. So my promise to you is to stand there and fight. And I'm putting Scott out there too. He's going to have to stand there and fight too. And if he don't, I'm going to tell him. When Gary gets elected to the governor's office, if he don't do it, I'm going to tell him too. I'm not up there for a job or a career. I care less about it. I got a simple military retirement. But I'm not doing what I'd love to do. I will one of these days. But for now, I'm right where God wants me. And that's who I hope you send up to represent you, to make sure we stand for what's right in America. So thank you all for having me tonight. I love and appreciate each and every one of you, David. Thank you for having me.
Questions?
I'd be happy to take any questions. Like I said, the harder the better. Oh, and I will like to preface it with this. If you don't want to hear the truth or don't want to know what's on my mind, don't ask. Oh, you waiting on me to call you out? I was looking for the guy behind. Yes, sir.
Representative Bennett, I know you're familiar with the principle about being faithful with a few things before you're entrusted with more. There's a growing concern about what's been going on with the health department and how they've administered their stewardship of public resources. What do you know about the Speaker looking into that issue and giving the public some assurance that there's better administration of those funds?
Thank you. I appreciate that question, and I agree with what you said too. I'm glad the Speaker's done this. We seem to be more reactive than proactive in the legislature.
That's true.
But I'm glad something's coming out of it now. I'm afraid if we would have passed a tax increase like was pushed real hard during session, I'm certain that the health department would have not been caught.
Yep.
That was the intention.
So that's another reason we need to really get in there and audit and figure out what's going on within these agencies. Now, I hear people all the time say, oh, wait a minute, but they do an audit every year. Well, if I give David $100, say, hey, I'm going to come back next year, see what you spent that on. He didn't spend his money. I'm going to come back and say, you got the receipt for $100? You say, yep, got it right here. It doesn't matter what he bought or what he did with it, but he can prove that he spent the money. That's a receipt audit. That's the audits they're getting every year, and I put it in the most simplistic terms as possible because I'm not the smartest guy in the world, Marine, and we love to play with crayons. So I put it in the most simple way that I could. But we're talking about real performance, or some even use the catchphrase forensic audits from an independent entity. You can't let OMES or somebody else go in there and audit them because you're not going to get an exact audit. You need some outside agency to go in and audit these agencies to make sure they're spending your money on what they're supposed to. They can provide receipts for that, and it's not being wasted away on things that we don't need or is not a primary mission of that agency. But they've been doing this. Who knows how many years it's been since they had an actual audit.
Yep.
So the answer has always been, well, let's just raise taxes and throw more money at it. It keeps them quiet, keeps them happy, keeps the citizens happy because they're not using you as pawns to call us to say raise taxes because they're going to cut your services. And it's easier for the legislator because you know what they think? They think in 2-year terms. I got an election in 2 years. What can I do to keep everybody happy right now?
Yeah.
They don't want to make the real tough decisions. Some of them do, but a majority don't, obviously. Or we wouldn't be in this problem today. They raised taxes with the 1017 fund. They did that in special session, by the way, because their arms were being twisted by OEA, NEA, and others saying, you've got to give us more money. And after that got passed, the largest tax increase in Oklahoma history, you know what the legislature did, the Democrat-controlled legislature at the time? They added in all this additional spending on top of it, so it really did no good. Oh, by the way, that's where the pre-K programs came from, the free meals, all these programs. Remember when we used to have county superintendents?
Yep.
Guess what happened to them when that 1017 money was raised? Now we have superintendents in every school.
565.
So now I'm not saying let's do away with all this stuff. I'm just simply stating that's what they did. So throwing money, raising taxes is not the answer. You've got to audit them. You've got to hold them accountable for their money. Then, and I've told everyone that I'm completely against raising taxes. If they could show me an outside independent audit and prove a need for more money for vital services within an agency,
Yep.
I'll be the first guy in line to say, let's raise taxes.
There you go.
Because that's why we pay taxes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Let me tell you another interesting thing that happened with House Bill 1017. I'm a designer in an architecture firm. One of the mandates was they were trying to get the class size down to 20 students per class. So when we designed Claremont Elementary, we designed it because of House Bill 1017 for 20 students per class. They've never been able to get there. So we have these white elephants that we spent all this money building. The unintended consequences of government's one-size-fits-all thinking is just incredible. But that's just that's where the money was spent. They spent it building buildings to meet the mandates and all that. It did not work.
You know, I'm a student of history. I love history. I just sit and watch the History Channel all day if I had the time, but I don't. But I researched back to the 90s when 1017 was passed, went and looked at some of the old news archives, and you know, they touted this 1017. Oh, this is the bill that's going to save everything in education. Now, I'm not harping on education. I'm just saying that's what they were saying. This will end all issues with education funding. And you know what they did? A couple of years later, they come back and raise more taxes.
Parimutuel betting.
Parimutuel betting. They come back with the lottery. They come back. Oh, we're going to make money. We've got the compact with the tribes. We're going to make money off the casinos. Did that fix anything? No. What was we back just in special session doing? We got to raise taxes to save our services. It's a lie. It is all a lie, and they knew it. We knew it, and they still pushed for tax increases. And according to the governor's own statements, she's calling another special session with the sole purpose of raising taxes. And I can guarantee you this, you all say, John Bennett said so. They're going to pull the sky's falling routine again. They're going to threaten our elderly. They're going to threaten our disabled. They're going to threaten all those people in those vulnerable services that receive the services or needs that they have. They're going to threaten them and use them to extort money out of the legislature.
Terrorize.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
I really enjoyed your remarks, very inspiring. You said one thing only that I didn't agree with. You said, we have faith. I have not faith. The leaders of our state, our capital, Washington, have faith. Not me.
Yes, sir. I digress. I wasn't pointing fingers. I was pointing at myself too here. We have. What I meant by that is we have all failed is by making sure we properly vet and send the right folks every day. Because there's a lot of waffling going on. I see it every day, and it's really disappointing. And some of them didn't have the intentions when they went up there, but they get held in that bubble. And I think that's why in the U.S. Congress side, they get up there and they're hearing something completely different than what we're screaming down here. Because they're up there and they're in that little bubble. And it's the same thing at a different level here at the state capitol. I'll be right back.
Go ahead, sir.
Article 2, Section 11, Oklahoma Constitution. Officers and personnel attention to duties, intoxications. Every person elected or appointed to any office or employment of trust or profit under the laws of the state or under any ordinance of any municipality thereof shall give personal attention to the duties of the office to which he is elected or appointed. Drunkenness and the excessive use of intoxicating liquors while in office shall constitute sufficient cause for impeachment or removal therefrom. How do we get them out?
Who's drinking? I don't know, because I don't drink.
Most of them are drinking, but how do we get them out?
It's hard to impeach anybody the way the laws are set up, and that's probably by design. I don't know. I wasn't there when they come up with that law. But I will say this, for representatives anyway, we have every 2 years to hold them accountable.
Okay.
We just got to pay attention to what they're doing, because miraculously, around election time, they're doing everything right.
Yeah.
They're doing everything right, so.
Well, follow up, department heads, agency heads, any of them that are drinking, if I'm not mistaken, the Constitution holds them accountable. Now, we the people, how do we get them out? How do we call them on it?
You talking about Preston?
Pressing Dorfling?
I think I know who you're referring to.
Marlette?
They're kind of what I would call a pass-through. The agency heads, they're all part of the executive branch. They work for the governor. She, or whoever's in that office, when something like that happens, has the authority and ability to relieve them of their duty. Problem is they won't do it.
Okay.
For different reasons, I'm sure, but probably one of them is really they look bad whenever their agency head looks bad. And that probably, I'm not saying this governor is, but probably would lead a governor to block any audits or not hold anyone accountable to audits within their agencies if they even think something's going wrong, because it reflects back on the governor.
When I get elected, will you accompany me in trying to remove these people that we find doing this?
Oh, absolutely. Hey, I don't have a problem killing a fly with a sledgehammer. Yes, sir.
As a former children's pastor over 400 plus children, I was very pleased when Texas developed a department and a department head for human trafficking and sexual exploitation of children. 500,000 to 1 million children in the United States, depending upon who you talk to, are at risk now for sex trafficking or great exploitation. Now, when I tell people that 1 out of 4 little girls and 1 out of 6 little boys will be or has been abused by the time they're 18, a lot of them are surprised. Did y'all know that number? What can we do in Oklahoma to fight this? I know our budget isn't like Texas budget, developing a department with a department head that they hired from Florida that does the same thing. But we've got to address this problem. We're in the top 5 to 10 corridors for sex trafficking for the last 10 years. And it's not just because we have interstates. It's because it's happening here in the state of Oklahoma. So what would you like to see done to fight this problem? We don't have a governor's commission. We don't have a department. What are some of the things you would like to see if money was no object?
I'd love to see the same model that Texas is using and using Florida to run all that stuff for them, if we had the money. But it's disgusting that that stuff even happens, and I'm very aware of it. I've been looking at that stuff here recently and talking to, I'm the chairman over public safety, and I've been talking with the agency heads, OBNDD, as well as OSBI, and it's a humongous problem in the state of Oklahoma. I mean, it's a lot worse than people even realize. But they're tracking and enforcing that stuff with federal law enforcement and others as well, but there's no actual committee set up for oversight to make sure it's being done, tracked, and put into some kind of database. Yet, we do need one.
Well, the liberal media will not put it out there because a third of those involved in this are Democrats and the others are Muslims. So, you know, what we're looking at is a situation where the media, the fake media, suppresses it. And no, people don't know these simple facts. So it's time for education, and you know, I'd like to see more business leaders, more ministers become involved and become aware of this, and that's why I'm talking with Scott and McKeechin about some things, and also talking with other office holders. But it's time to do something, and I'm glad you're on board. We'll talk.
Absolutely, and I will say this, pedophilia across the United States is becoming popular amongst a lot of leaders. A lot. That is a very bad problem. That's a snowball effect. It's going to get bigger, and once the more higher level officials get involved in supporting that and contributing to that, our laws are slowly going to change in that direction, and that is not what we want to be at all. And one way to start fighting that is, like you said. Yes, sir.
We not only have a commission on performance audits that was signed with an emergency clause. Somehow it got past me last May. That's a good development. Also, McCall has just impaneled a special committee. I believe Representative Cockcroft is chairing it. Tell us how much confidence you have, or tell us what kind of things that you'd like to see happen that could give us confidence in those two vehicles for accountability.
That's a great question, and there's two of those committees. One was just started, just this week. The other two were started during the last session. Bills that were passed to form these groups. I'm sorry, one bill I'm going to talk to you about was 2 years ago, and one was last year. The one from 2 years ago was a committee to look at all the tax credits that are going out, and we're spending billions, with a B, capital B, and tax credits are flying out the door every year. There was a committee set up through legislation with an emergency clause saying that, hey, you need to look at all these tax credits going out the door and find out which ones we're getting a return on investment on and which ones we're not. Recommend those to us, and then the legislature go out and take them away accordingly, or leave them in place. Biggest problem, the Speaker was supposed to appoint members, so was the Senate, the leader of the Senate and the governor. Guess who just appointed theirs about 6 months ago? The Senate and the governor. So the committee didn't even come together until, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 months ago, 8 months at best, to even start looking into this. So that's one problem. I'm glad that they finally get past that, but it takes a while for that stuff, the benefits of that to come out. The other issue was the...
Well, you got two. You got the Commission on Performance Audits that was signed into law, and then the Cockcroft Committee that just...
and then the performance audits was just done last year as well. And, once again, two of the folks that were supposed to appoint members to that committee didn't do so until this session.
Yeah, very recent.
Another huge problem, that's a lag of a year, or a lag of several months, that they could have come together and already started doing this. So once those two start going, we'll see some benefits, hopefully. I think those two committees will start bringing some things to light that we need to see and to address, and that will bring more money back in there. As far as the Representative Cockcroft's committee, I think he'll do a good job. There's some good members on there. There's some other members I would have loved to have seen put on there that are good watchdogs, and I can think of one right now. You'll probably know Representative Kevin Calvey.
He's on
a lawyer by trade for one.
He's on it.
Oh, is he on
Him
there?
and Tom
Okay.
Gann are both
I didn't
on
see
it.
his name on there.
Yeah.
Those two alone,
Yeah.
I think, will be drivers of that train. Calvey's termed out. He has nothing to lose. I don't think he would anyway.
No,
But he will go after them, and we've talked in private. He's got a lot of ideas already.
Yeah.
And he knows how to work the legal system to hold them accountable by bringing them in, subpoenaing them, and if they lie, hold them accountable.
Yes.
That's my question. Is it true, and it may be either you or Scott might have to answer it, that only the chairman of the committee is allowed to issue subpoenas in regard to these audits and stuff?
For this specific committee,
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure on that. I haven't seen the rules guiding it. Do you know?
My name keeps coming up, can I pop up for a
Absolutely.
My chief researcher handed me this little news release by the governor's office. Did you know about that? Today.
Yeah, today.
Am I the only one that didn't know that? Okay, fair enough.
Pretty much.
The subpoena power belongs to the House. So if it's the chairman's signature on the subpoena, or whoever, or the chairman that makes the request, the entire committee should get the benefit of that. The entire House should get the benefit of what they're learning. And the other thing I wanted to pop in here with, thank you, John, for allowing me this interruption. Is anybody an auditor? Because I'm going to try and speak auditor. And I want to know if anybody can
Got one.
help me.
George.
George. Don't help me, George. I've been helped by George before. Love you, George.
Yeah, we've got a phrase
So
for
one
Scott.
of the things that I asked an auditor who has run government audits, supervised government audits, I said, what are the parameters of a performance audit? And he said, well, there is no set list for a performance audit. A performance audit can reach whatever you ask it to reach. So we can do faster, more limited audits to begin with, so that the whole process won't take, so it won't just seem like a soundbite or something that we propose to do because we handed it off to somebody else to do. Thank you for letting me interrupt.
The You ever heard that old saying, never give a preacher or politician a microphone?
Yeah.
You didn't get a microphone.
He just proved me wrong. I mean, he
He's
said
good.
what he wanted to say and sat down.
Good.
Yes, sir.
One more.
We've all heard the expression, they're drinking the Kool-Aid. That's going on in Oklahoma among the voters. You're talking to the choir, preaching to the choir here. I'm running for Weldon Watson seat, he's gonna be retiring, and I'm going door to door. And they are hearing in the media that we've got to raise taxes because the legislature has been starving education. They're taking all the money and there's no money. And I'll ask people, do you know how much of our state budget goes to education? And they said, 6%. I said, no, actually, it's about 52% of the total appropriations go to education. They're like, well, where's all the money going? 2%. And my frustration is this is why I bring it up. They're drinking the Kool-Aid, they're believing it. If you say anything other than that, they think you're lying. And I don't hear legislators, I don't hear our House people standing up and refuting this garbage. And it goes up voice. I tell you what, we're gonna get slaughtered. Republicans are gonna get slaughtered in June if the members of this House don't stand up and tell the truth, because they're believing everything KRG is saying. Every time the superintendent of Tulsa Public Schools gets up there, they believe every bit. I think people think that the taxpayers are supposed to supply school supplies. You know, it used to be your mom sent you with pencils and paper. Now they think the taxpayers in my district, which is Weldon's district, we're in it. The average age of the voter here is about 70 to 90 years old. And they can't afford a tax increase. They're on fixed incomes. Many of them lost their life savings at the end of the Bush years when the stock market crashed. They're too embarrassed to say. But this idea that people in this district can handle a tax increase is garbage, and it can't happen, and we need to tell them the truth. What can you guys do? Will you do something between now and this primary election to straighten this out? Because we're going to get annihilated.
Yeah, and I feel your pain. I can't, 99% of the papers it sends up to won't run it. Or they'll chop it up. Or they'll run some of it and get something refuted by a local administrator or something else. Some quick numbers for you, and I know we got to get out of here, but did you know we only have 44% of the entire state budget to appropriate?
Yes.
And out of that 44%, Common Ed, K through 12, gets like 36% of that. And then everything else is split up between the other core functions of government, public safety, healthcare, and so forth. Out of that, the other 56% goes straight to that entity, and the lion's share goes to education. Mainly common education. Now, the Democrats felt the same punch in the mouth years ago. And their answer to it was House Bill 1017, which obviously didn't work because there was no real reforms put in place, there was no real audits done, and no one knew where any of the money was going. I can almost guarantee you, if they would go in and take, just start with the top 3 agencies of receivers of appropriated dollars. Just take the top 3 and go in and just do a crushing audit on them to figure out where that money's going, what's been spent. We will save enough to give every teacher in this state a pay raise. I can almost guarantee it by the next election cycle. But it's having the will to do it.
Donna, get some quick.
Just real quick, John, you might not know, but Scott should know, our mayor is going to go to legislature trying to get you all to change the law so he can get some more of our property tax, so he can help the schools. That's not his job to do anything in the schools.
You know, the ad valorem taxes, the property taxes, by law, they can only use that money to build buildings or for technology. That's it. So that's why you see these schools going up, nice schools going up, because of ad valorem tax. Even if they raise it, they can use it for what he's probably trying to sell it as. So there's definitely got to be a lot of reforms and raising taxes.
Run, Scott, and then we're going to wrap up.
No, the one thing I wanted to tell you is know that we have your back, and that the state committee, the Oklahoma GOP state committee, commended the 22 representatives that were there that voted no on the day that we were able to defeat the bill. Scott McEachin was one of those representatives, and we said thank you. you were absent because of your wife's surgery and you had to miss it. So your name did not make it on that list. But I want you to know that we thank you and we thank Nathan Dahm and all the other five senators that stood for the people of Oklahoma in opposing higher taxes. And so we want you to know we do have your back.
Well, thank you, Ron. I will say, there's a procedure in the House. If you miss a vote, you were excused for whatever reason. I was and my wife had surgery that day. That's why I missed that vote. But I went back the following week and had to put it in the House Journal. If I'd have been president, I would have voted no on that bill.
Good deal.
You should have saw the looks I got.
Yes, we saw that. Donna?
Now they're trying to change the rules, so.
Yeah. Okay, few things going on housekeeping. First of all, if you haven't signed in here, our Secretary Donnie would like to have a record of everybody who's been here. Membership comes due again the first of the year. Put that on your budget. If you want to take care of that tonight, you can as well. Next month's meeting is going to be a week early, the second Tuesday, and we have a special guest from the OCPA coming. Asked for Trent England, he couldn't make it. We've got Dave Bond coming, and he's going to be sharing with us. He's one of the fellows there. And so be sure to be a part of it a week early. We'll, of course, send emails out. We've got a few other special things going on. Breakfast coming up, or that's all done?
No, we don't have breakfast on in November and December because
That's
of
right.
the holidays.
Okay.
Our next meeting is November the 14th, and we're going to have Kathy Costello and Dan Fisher.
Okay.
Well, you said November the
December,
14th.
what did I say?
November the 14th.
Okay, well, don't show up because
Yeah.
that's like a year away.
All right. Republican Men's Club President Gary Gantz.
Second Tuesday, man, Ronnie, you love me. Second Wednesday of every month. This month's speaker on December 13th is Matt Pinnell and Glenn Mulready. They'll be talking about their runs for office for Lieutenant Governor and Insurance Commissioner. And December 17th, if you buy your ticket early or see Billy and reserve your spot, we'll have our Christmas party. We've got limited seating, or Mike, what would you call it? Availability based on the room size?
Capacity.
Okay.
Capacity, that's the right word.
All right. You're meeting Oklahoma Joe second Wednesday next month, right?
Second Wednesday.
For lunch.
For lunch.
All right. Yes, John.
David, I'm not sure if he was in a while ago, but aren't you running for something? Besides the border?
Not yet.
Not yet.
He's building the suspense. Yes, I hear those rumors too. Okay, good.
Republican
Yes,
women.
Charlie. Yes, and we got the tip bowl, please. They don't charge us anything for this room, but let's make sure the wait staff is well taken care of.
Republican
okay?
women.
And Republican women, do you know what's going on with them?
I do.
Yes.
Republican Women meets the second Tuesday of every month. That'll be the 12th of December. Crown Plaza at 11:30 to 1, and we will be having Everett Piper speak.
Okay, so second Tuesday you go to lunch with the Republican women, and then you come here that night. So you don't have to do that. All right? Merry Christmas. Thank you, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. I appreciate you being part of it tonight.
You guys aren't I heard that for the first of the year, maybe.
Hey, David, maybe.
Sorry for
You're fine. How's the world?
Yes, Tulsa.
Okay, great. Did it work out for you?
Yes, it was great.
Got you on the job?
Is that what it is?